This live presentation was produced in Ashland, Oregon by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. RVML relies on the support of our volunteers, members, and donors to organize and present these programs. For more information about this presentation, or to borrow, download, or purchase other recordings from our catalog, please visit our website at rvml.org.
Thank you. Wow. What can I say? Thank you for having me here. It's a very great honor. And I'm not going to disappoint you this evening. So whatever's going to happen, you will go home thinking, wow. And I don't know which wow that will be, but you will be wowed. Now, there's many aspects to my story, but somehow deep down, it's always about crop circles. It's always in the core of the story are crop circles. So I have decided to have first a look at a lot of these shapes and geometries and just let that sink in, let it happen. Just look at them, absorb them so that we all know what we're talking about. There's beautiful music to come with it. So. Wow. It's totally wow. And it doesn't matter where it comes from or how it happens, it's totally wow. And this is just a very small selection. I have seen hundreds of these shapes. I've walked through them, flown over them, made all these photos, made diagrams, and I'm still totally intrigued by it. But how did it start for me? How is it that I got so taken away by this phenomenon? For that, we have to go back to 1994. 1994, I was running a beautiful business in Groningen, in Holland, and I had nothing with crop circles. I was interested in frontier sciences, but crop circles was not part of that. So I had a really easygoing life. Life was good, very predictable. Then, coming back from a holidays, August 1994, a holidays of 3 weeks in Italy, I come back home. There's a whole stack of newspapers waiting for me. So I look at them and I flip through them easily, and then suddenly I stumble on this. And one of the newspapers is a photo of a crop circle. And it's totally amazing because this crop circle is very close to where I lived. And I thought, oh, wow, somehow I'm touched with it and I want to know what this is. Because it's so close, I always thought it's England, it is far away, nothing to do with me. This was only 15 miles from where I lived. So I thought, I will go and see this one. Slight problem. The newspaper was saying that it was south of Assen, a certain town, but not exactly where. Now, as you all know, Holland is a very small country, so I thought, I just get in my car, drive south of Assen, and we'll just find it there. That was a mistake. The whole day I drove, the whole day, and I could not find it. It was the end of August, were already all stubble fields. That's good luck because Holland is very flat, so you could see actually a little bit in the fields. I could not find it. And then comes the moment that you say, you know, I give up. Seemingly, this is not my thing, so let's just go home. Right on that moment, I'm driving there, on this road, and I look forward and I see, yes, there it sits in the field. And I'm really excited. I park my car, I go in the field, and I'm actually really surprised because this is a tiny circle compared to what I saw in the newspaper. And it has 4 little circles to go with it. Newspaper didn't mention any of that. Later on, it turned out that this was never published anywhere. I had found something brand new. And I was really excited, and I thought my girlfriend has to see this as well. So I went back to the car to pick her up. At the car, I look in the field again, shock. I cannot see it. I think that's really strange. It is there, but I cannot see it. It's in a hollowy in the field. So I think, you know what, it's likely because I drove here this piece of road, that stretch of road. So I got in the car, drove that stretch again, impossible to see. But still, the first time I had seen it. And that took me so deeply that I thought, you know what, I will go 1 year to England. 1 year, just to solve this mystery. That was not a mistake. Yeah, since that time, I've never been not in England. I've always gone to England. So after this event in 1995, I go to England, and I can tell you, Wiltshire, where all these crop circles happen, is an incredible, magical place. There's so much going on. For instance, Avebury. It's a huge circle of standing stones. It's about 4,500 years old. It's the biggest stone circle in the world. Tolkien would come here on a regular basis, sit here under this tree here for inspiration to write his Lord of the Rings. And later on you will see why he did that. This is an incredible, powerful spot. Here you see some of the standing stones. Now I was preparing all this, and yesterday evening I thought, okay, I'm totally done, I'm ready for it, I will throw it at them. Then we went to a restaurant, and while I was in the restaurant I thought, oh, that's really interesting, because the restaurant where I was the standing stone. Well, totally amazing. So you don't have to go to England likely to actually go to the standing stones. These stones are magical. They can talk to you. If you open up to them, if you know how to listen, they will talk to you. You can communicate with them. It's an incredible, powerful spot, Avebury. Just around the corner, you will find Silbury Hill. It's only half a mile from Avebury. It's about 12 stories high. So if you have a building from 12 stories, it's 42 meters. It's also 4,500 years old. It's man-made, and nobody knows why. It just sits there. Of course, people have done all kinds of digs, thinking that it was a burial place. Nothing ever found. There's no idea why it was put there, why they actually erected that hill there, but it is an incredible, powerful hill. Here, just behind it, you can see it sitting there, is this west-handed long barrow. Now, a barrow is a grave, and so this is a long grave. You can see it's enormous long. It's the longest grave of England. And it's not just a grave, it's not that people were buried there. There were already ceremonies done there, lots of rites. It's an incredible, strange place. You can walk into it. And when you walk into it, you have the feeling that you step actually into another world. Here you see the entrance, and you see how big it is, how high. So it's not just a little small burial place. Stonehenge, of course, is in Wiltshire. That we all know Stonehenge. An incredible, powerful spot. Here shows how big these stones are. And what motivated people to build Stonehenge? These stones came from 20 miles away. Can you imagine that? These stones dragged them 20 miles. Why not build it where these stones are? And other stones, the blue stones, come even from 200 miles away. They had the motivation to do that, to bring that to Wiltshire, to this really strange landscape, and erect it there. You will also find Wayland's Smithy, and that is named after Wayland the Smith, the blacksmith. And legend has it that here, Wayland was living, and he was forging the ring, the almighty ring. And Tolkien took that as the foundation of his story. So the foundation of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is actually here it's coming from Norway, but Wayland lived here in this place. And of course there's Avalon, Glastonbury, with the Tor, with Chalice Well, where legend says that the Holy Grail is hidden in this well. And here, the Abbey crowns. On the Abbey crowns, you will find the grave of King Arthur and Queen Sophia. All these stories come all together in Wiltshire. It's an incredible, magical landscape. It's really amazing. White horses being carved in the hills. Many of them. Dragons even. And this dragon is about 2,500, 3,000 years old, and you only can see it from the air. So there I was, going through this incredible landscape, seeing all these things, going from one surprise to the other, and then I realized it. I was not seeing one thing. One thing was totally missing. Crop circles. I was seeing only potter spots, but I didn't see any crop circles. And again, there comes a moment that you say, you know what? I give it up. Seemingly this is not my thing. I have to stop here. And that was the moment I walked on this street in Marlborough, High Street. And I was walking here, and right there was a man sitting. Bang! He's not sitting there now, but when I walked there, he was sitting there. So I walked by, and out of the corner of my eyes, I saw that he was looking at photos. And I thought crop circle photos, but it takes a few seconds before you realize that. So you're a little bit further and you think, wow. So you go back and you look, and I'm totally disappointed. Because they're not crop circles. They're actually photos of mosaics made of stone, little pebbles in that, all geometries that you can make with them. So I thought, okay, it's not my thing, simply. And just on the moment I wanted to walk on, the man grabbed my arm and said, are you looking for crop circles? And I said, does it say somewhere on my forehead or something? Do I have a neon sign? I said, yeah. I said, wait, here you see the man. You see the bag there. He goes to his bag, gets some photos out of the bag, and shows them to me. And they're all crop circles. I said, wow, how did you get those? He said, I made them myself. Oh, when? I said, yesterday. Yesterday? Where? Here, everywhere around us. And I couldn't believe it. That cannot be true. I cannot find them. Seemingly, I'm not looking correctly because I don't see them. And he taught me where they were and how to look to see them. And he was the start of a roller coaster ride that in the end led actually to this book. So is there anybody who thinks, wow, Bert, great story, I want to have that book right now? Anybody? Yeah, I will give it to you then. There you go. Yeah, that's how that goes. Messengers pay attention because they come by and they're gone before you know it. I know all about that, how that goes. So, there I am, in 1995. This is my very first real crop circle I walked through in 1995. Winterbourne Bassett. Now, my background is mathematics. And I immediately recognized that as Pythagoras. For those people who are not so mathematical, just believe me. The whole theorem of Pythagoras is encoded in this crop circle. That same year, I did a night watch on this hill, Knapp Hill. Night watch is that you're going to sit on the hill and you hope that something happens. So you're going to witness a crop circle being formed. And while sat on that hill, there's this sound, this strange crackling sound that communicates with me. So I'm sitting in my little chair and then it's on the left. And I look, there's nothing to be seen. And it moves in front of me, it moves to the right, it moves around me. It keeps moving. And I never saw anything. It's pretty spooky, I can tell you. But for me, it was a reason to say, you know what? I promised myself to go 1 year, but after this, I will go 1 more year. So there I am, back in 1996. Stonehenge, this crop circle. Everybody knows it, who knows a little bit about crop circles. I've seen it, walked through it. This is one of the very few events that happened in daytime. So the whole day, there's all these tourists here at Stonehenge, an incredible busy road here, the A303, and planes flying over the whole time. Nobody saw anything until suddenly at 5:30 in the afternoon, everybody starts shouting, what is that there? Nobody saw anything. Nobody saw it being formed. Nobody saw anything in the fields. The only thing they noticed is that 20 minutes earlier it was not there. And suddenly there it is, the Julia said. An incredible crop circle. And while I had to go back to Holland again because I only could go 2 or 3 weeks, the weekend I drove back, this was filmed at Oliver's Castle. These balls of light floating over a field. More coming. And did you all see it? Did you see what happened under the balls of light? I will play it again. Because this is difficult. You're so focused on the balls of light. So look at the field when you see first the balls of light. Look here. There's totally nothing there. And while these balls of light fly, woof, it falls in the field.
Did you film that?
I did not film that myself. No, I was on my way back to Holland. So I come back in Holland and hear about it and think, how is this possible? I just left that area, just on a Saturday, and this is the night from Saturday on Sunday. So it's a few hours after I left. But for me, reason enough to go back again. And sure enough, 1997, I see for the first time a ball of light myself. I see an orb flying from here, from the Tossmeat Copse, over this field to these sheds here. And not swishing, no, easy, took all the time. Moved, stopped, became really big, became really small again, moved a little bit, went a little bit back. It took minutes to get from here to that spot. And it never reappeared again from that shed. So it disappeared behind the shed, it never reappeared. So you can imagine, 1998, I was still in this phenomenon, and I was lucky enough to meet this man, Robert van der Broeke. He's a Dutch guy, and he's a phenomenon in himself. 1998, not that many people knew about him, but living with his parents, balls of light would fly behind his house, over the fields, and the next day, circles would appear. But the balls of light would also bang into the house and leave physical traces. Now, I've met the father, he was director of the local bank, and he didn't want anything to do with it. He thought, this is just not my thing, but he had to admit it is happening. These things, there were all these burn marks on the house, of all these orbs appearing, banging against the house, going through the garden, leaving burn marks in the grass. So, wow, I had to go back to England. 1999, there I am again. And guess here, there's another of those. All kinds of people, nobody saw it actually. The guy who films it sees it. He sees it. It's not that he is not aware of it, that he's lucky that he gets it in camera. He sees it coming and follows it. And if you analyze the footage, you will see there's about 6 or 7 of them there at Barbary Castle. So 2000, I'm back again. Here is Andy Buckley. And look here. 25 minutes, more than 25 minutes, 28 minutes. He filmed dozens of these objects. They keep flying. And the stories I have heard in Wiltshire of these balls of light floating over the fields, 10, 20, 50, 100, 200. So many of these stories. I have seen these balls myself. But one thing was lacking. One thing, what I thought I would see, would hear about, I did not hear. That was UFOs. I was so sure that there was an alien connection between crop circles and UFOs that I thought by the time I'm there 5-6 years, there will be about 10, 20, 100 stories about all these crafts swishing by, aliens going in the fields and that. I don't know how they do that. No, only 3 stories, perhaps 4 I know, that were really convincing that I thought, you know what, here's something going on. But I saw something else. And I had seen that already in my very first crop circle. Here it became already apparent for me. And here it was totally clear. I saw a human connection. I saw that we humans are very, very closely related to this phenomenon. And it has to do with the geometry, with the shapes. Now here you see some boring geometry. Like we all have done that at school when you were bored with mathematics and that, and you were playing with a compass, so making all these things, and then you had perhaps a straight edge, you were making some lines, and they call that construction technique. You use construction techniques. You're not measuring anything. What you merely do is you let actually the shape itself, the geometry itself, tell you what the next step has to be. Now you have to realize that compass and this straight edge, that's our limitation. Nature has no problems making circles. We have that. We humans cannot make circles, even though there are world championships circle drawing. I've seen it, it's really totally amazing. You see there's some guy, perfect circle. Okay, yeah, all these things you can do in your life. Straight lines we also cannot draw. We need an object for that. We need an instrument. So what you see here is a drawing totally based on our human shortcomings, on our limitations, what you see here. Now, this you can add to it. You can make this green circle fitting in a triangle. The circles you can then copy and have that as center. You can add more to it. You add more to it, and bang. Now I can hear you say, "Whoa, Mr. Janssen, are you saying it's all fake, it's all man-made? Wow, were we always so actually tricked in this phenomenon?" No, now it becomes really interesting. Because, look here, this is the diagram. And me, as a human with all these shortcomings, I need this red circle to place these circles exactly in the right spot. If I don't have this red circle, I do not have this center here, and I just have to guess. So I cannot make it then. And look now in the formation. That circle is not there. So in a way, that phenomenon is saying, Bert, we know you. We know all your shortcomings. And we're so closely related, but we're not you. We are something else. But we're very close to you. That is just one example. I've studied so many of them, and every time I stumbled on that somehow we were so much closer related to the phenomenon than I ever had thought. So in the end, I wrote even this book about it, The Hypnotic Power of Crop Circles, and I stumbled on the work of Carl Gustav Jung. And Carl Gustav Jung, everybody knows him, the psychologist. He did a lot of research with patients that could not talk. And they could not talk because they were too depressed or too schizophrenic. So if you would ask them, so how are you doing today? Doesn't help, of course. So Jung said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you paint and canvas. And we let you paint what you feel. So you don't have to talk, paint it. Now, the first painting, that was very obvious. It's very threatening. The person is stuck in the rocks, very pointy, very dark. So Jung was not surprised to see this. So it's okay, go on, make a new one. Now I show you a few paintings of one of his patients, but all of his patients went through the same actually trajectory. They went through the same path. The next thing was this, something broke loose. And Jung said, yeah, it's okay, I can see that, yeah, no, I have an explanation for that. Yeah, move on, paint again. And then this happened. And this now it became really interesting. Because the next was this. The paintings were becoming more colorful and incredible geometric. And Jung said, this cannot be true. Am I the very first one who is noticing this? So he started a lot of historical research. And he ran into the Chinese alchemists who had seen the same thing thousands of years ago. And they used this the other way around. They used it to access our inner being. So Jung came to the conclusion, if the human psyche, the human mind, the human being, if we express ourselves on the deepest levels, we do that in geometry. So geometry is the deepest level language. And he wrote a beautiful book about it. I have here only the Dutch title, Symbology of the Mandala. I show the Dutch one because it has this as subtitle. Images from the unconscious. Images that come forth of the unconscious. So I said the unconscious somehow triggers things and talks to the world in geometries. And it's that moment that I thought, can it be that when we dive deep inside of us, collectively, that somehow, for some mystical reason, these beautiful shapes in the fields come out of it? Is this our handiwork? Wow. At this moment in time, I knew I'm about to crack it. I'm so close now. I'm so close to resolving this huge mystery. The only thing I have to do is open the last door. And behind the last door, there will be the solution to this incredible, great mystery. So I opened the door, bang! A total new enigma waited for me. An enigma that has to do with the landscape. So I thought I've now nearly cracked it. It all started all over again. And it has to do with that spot there. Now this is northern Wiltshire. It's a very small area you're looking at here. It's 2 by 3 miles. So it's a very, very small area. But in that area you will find the Adam and Eve stones. They're really important there. You will find Avebury. Here, there's the tree of Tolkien. It's that tree. There is the long barrow. You see how close all these things are together. There is a sanctuary, also a place of many, many ceremonies, 4,000 to 5,000 years old, connected to Avebury by the Stone Avenue. A whole avenue of standing stones that is there. And there in the center, Soberty Hill. Wow, what a landscape. And there, what is there? Nothing. Total nothing. But it is the most important spot of nothingness of Wiltshire. There has not been a more important spot of total nothingness in Wiltshire than this spot. And to realize that, you have to know that there's a church in Ockman St. George. And the church is here on this map. And it's not only in Ockman St. George. Here, in Wooden Rivers, here in Pusey, Manifold Bahun, Bishop's Canning, Colstall Wellington, Compton Bassett, and Clive Pipert. And do you see it? All these churches are on a circle. And the center of that circle is that spot of nothingness. Now, can you all think, Mr. Janssen, that's actually not totally fair. If you take a lot of churches in the box and you just sprinkle that in the landscape, then it's just a little bit, and you will find the circle. And you know what? I can agree with that. But here is a church, St. Catherine's, there in Wooden Rivers, in Avebury, Winterbourne Mountain, Berwick Bassett, Winterbourne Bassett, Rawton, and you'll see it again. Again, they are on a circle. And both circles are identical in size. So what are the odds that you find 2 of these circles? Now, these churches are all pretty young. They're perhaps, for English standards, very young. They're 800 to 900 years old. So they're very young. But the circles themselves are thousands of years old. When the pagans were going around in this area, they would build their altars, their sacred spots, on places where it felt right for them, where they felt connected with the earth. So they would go around and say, oh, feels good here. Let's have an altar here, pang, and they would move on. And I think without even realizing it, they were creating these circles. And then when the Christians came, and the Christians wanted to get rid of the pagans, what they did was build the churches on the old altars of the pagans. That served 2 purposes. First of all, you got rid of the altar, and second, people were already used to go there to these spots. So people would come to your church. And so, very quickly, everybody adapted to Christianity. But the circles are thousands of years old. And they're really, really special. They're not a vesica Pisces. So they don't go through each other's center. You can add 2 circles that do that. And when I did that, and I drew this line, and I saw that triangle, I thought, I don't believe this. Of course, you all recognize it also immediately. That triangle is exactly the Great Pyramid. Now you can say, this is ridiculous, Mr. Janssen. Yeah, I know, but it is true. It's how it is. Is it that these people went to Egypt, saw there this majestic big pyramid near Cairo, and thought, boring, we're going to make that gigantic big in the landscape. Or did the Egyptians come to Wiltshire and saw the thing in the landscape saying, that's boring, 3-dimensional, you want that, not 2D, let us show you how to do that. And they made the Great Pyramid. Or did they never meet? And that is really likely. They never met. But how is it then that these both people at the same time, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, had the same thing that intrigued them? A triangle with a slope of 51.51 degrees. Now this is not a coincidence. It's not that the Egyptians had a whole bunch of stones and thought, you know what, let's just stack all these stones and we'll see where it ends. No, that had to be exactly 51.51 degrees. And it is exactly that. And the reason for that is that with that angle, this is possible. A square that is defined by the base of the pyramid, and a circle that's defined by the height of the pyramid. What makes this so special? The perimeter of the square is identical to the circumference of the circle. So if you walk around the square, you walk the same distance as when you walk around the circle. And for the Egyptians, that was incredibly important. That had to be encoded in the Great Pyramid, squaring the circle. It had to be there for them. Why? I have no idea. But I know that great minds after them have been really captivated by it. Archimedes was totally captivated, Pythagoras. Later, Da Vinci was really captivated by squaring the circle. Even his Vitruvian Man is based on squaring the circle. Newton was totally obsessed by squaring the circle, but nobody knows what to do with it. And it's even stranger, this is a geometry that you will not find in nature. It's nowhere to be found in nature. It's a human construct. We came up with that. We came up with a square and a circle with the same perimeter and circumference. The only place where I know it exists is here. If you take the Earth and you put the moon on top of it, and you make a square around the Earth and a circle through the center of the moon, amazingly enough, you get exactly squaring the circle. Somehow, it's very deeply encoded in us. But like I say, it's not to be found in nature, nowhere, but in nearly all crop circles. I don't know how many crop circles I've analyzed, and every time, again and again, I came across this squaring the circle, encoded in all kinds of different ways. Even though you cannot really 100% construct it, these are all approximations, really brilliant approximations of how you can actually construct squaring the circle nearly 100% effective. So it's only there, and of course here. And because it's here in the Great Pyramid, it's also in the landscape of Wiltshire. And all this geometry, all these lines, what you see there, those lines connect all the sacred sites in Wiltshire. So all the sacred sites fit in that geometry. It's totally amazing. It goes totally beyond my mind for how this could have happened. Now you see here this line going through this intersection point there, parallel to base, this line. That line is not just a line. That is the most important line of England. And see how it goes through this pyramid. That line is this line. There are two ley lines in England, starting at Land's End, and they meander to Hopton. Hopton is somewhere here, Land's End is there, and they meander, they go a little bit left, a little bit right, but you can take the average of it. It's called the Michael alignment, and this red line is the Michael alignment. And you have to realize that you have to know the whole totality of the ley lines to know what the average is of the ley lines. So how can it be that this red line is exactly the Michael alignment, that it exactly parallels this pyramid, that exactly goes here through these intersection points? Think about it. It's totally amazing. There's a much, much bigger picture going on there. That landscape is so intriguing. Of course, I was immediately intrigued by the King's Chamber. That's me, I'm an explorer, I try to find treasures, so my first thought was, what is there in the landscape? There, where the King's Chamber is, what is there in the landscape? So I looked, and it's that what you see there, that spot there, and that's called Temple Farm. Temple Farm, and to understand the importance that exactly where the King's Chamber is Temple Farm, I have to tell you something about the Knights Templar. They're totally involved in this. Now, the Knights Templar, everybody knows this story. There's these noble knights, I think it started with 9 of them, to defend the way to the Holy Land. So can you imagine, there are 9 knights, and to go from Europe to the Holy Land, I don't know how much it is, something like 4,500 kilometers. So every 500 kilometers, there's a knight with a sword. Ding, ding, ding. I'm defending this. Ding, ding. Of course not. No, they were doing something totally different. It doesn't matter. Books have been written about it. They came back to France, and they became incredibly wealthy. Land was given to them, donated. Money was donated to them, and they became the force, actually the political force of Europe in those days. Of course, it ended really bad with these guys. Now, these Knights Templar, what was actually their thought pattern? What were they thinking? How did they see the world? They saw the world a little bit different than the average man is seeing it. And it's beautiful described in the Nag Hammadi library. That's a whole library of old scrolls found in Nag Hammadi in Egypt around the time the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And the scrolls are the same age as the Dead Sea Scrolls. But they tell a little bit a different story. They tell, for instance, that God had a mother. That God was not the highest, no, there was a mother of God. And the mother of God was called Sophia. And God, Yahweh, Yaldabaoth, stole the divine light from his mother, from the goddess, and distributed that over humanity. And so the Knights Templar was saying, the divine spark is in us. It's not outside of us, it's in us. And our duty is to bring that back to the goddess. We have to return this divine light to the goddess. Now, you can of course see that the church was not so happy with these guys when they got really powerful, because it meant you do not need the church. You can do it yourself. Well, that was of course not really smart of these guys. But, so, I think 1307, 13th of October 1307, Friday the 13th, they were all rounded up and burned at the stake. That's why we still have Friday the 13th. It's based on that. But these same Knight Templar went also to England. And so they went to the south of England and they were wandering around, looking, feeling, seeing. And then there came the moment that they came at Rockley. And they looked at Rockley and said, this is it. This is the spot, guys. Here we will start our first stronghold. And from that moment onwards, it was called Temple Farm. And you see, they did not do really bad. It's still there. And also they there in England got lots of money, lots of land. And they became filthy rich and powerful. And I thought, if I can find who gave that money and why, then I can crack the mystery of the Knights Templar. With that, likely the mystery of the whole landscape. With that, the mystery of the crop circles. So for me it was very simple. Find the guys who donated the money. And one of them I found was the Count de Beaujean. And the Count de Beaujean lived here in this house. This is a newer version of his house, but it was exactly on this spot. So I went there, and when I came there, I noticed this little quaint church just next to the house. And when you look from above, you see there's something strange going on. This church is not built north-south or east-west. No, it's built under an angle. You see, this is the hard line of the little church there. This is the line. And when I drew that line, I thought, oh, this cannot be true. This cannot be true. Because if you zoom out, there is the church. This is the line. It exactly parallels these lines and exactly goes to this intersection point. It had to be that whoever built that church knew about this geometry in the landscape. It was done on great purpose. So, of course, me being me, I had to go into this church. So there I am in the church, and this is how an English church looked like. It's all these little trinkets everywhere, and it's all very beautiful. There's a lot of symbolism, but my main attention was drawn here, to this door. Why? Because the door was locked. And if you ever go do an expedition so that you want to discover things, try to find the locked doors. Doors that are open, nothing is hidden behind that. The locked doors. But lucky, the door was locked, but it was made of wooden spiles, wooden sticks actually. It was like a jail door. So you could look between the little spiles of the wood, the little things. There is a curtain there, but if you move the curtain away, which I did, you see this. And of course, this is Jesus. And Jesus always said, open your eyes and you will see. Now I ask you, are his eyes open or closed? Yeah? Both. It's your perception. It's a reflection of your perception. It's how you perceive reality, what you will see. What's comfortable for you, you will see. If it's comfortable that the eyes are closed, you will see the eyes closed. If it's comfortable that the eyes are open, the eyes will be open. Open your eyes and you will see. So you can imagine, year after that, or year after, I think it was the year after that, 12th of August 2009, there I am again, at that same church, go inside again. Now my attention is drawn by this window in the back. I said, wow, what is this? Beautiful window, and I'm really, really intrigued by this crown with 12 stars. It's the 12th of August. I said, this cannot be a coincidence. How is this possible that I'm getting drawn to this and there are 12 stars in the crown? Well, it's the 12th of August. And while I'm contemplating on that, I hear a voice saying, Bert, you have to go outside. Outside, and you have to climb the crown in the landscape. And there you have to open your eyes, and you will see. So, whoa. And while I heard that voice, I saw this mental picture of trees in the distance, far distance. In front of the trees, a field. And in the field, a majestic crop circle. So I thought, wow, I have to get to this hill. Now, I know the crown in the landscape is this hill. I knew that. It's Avonton. It's where the white dragon is. It's also where Dragon Hill plays an important role, again, in the books of Tolkien. And where this very old stone fort is. So I went up here, stood there, and I looked, and I recognized the trees in the distance. I recognized the field. I looked, and what did I see? Nothing. I was totally surprised. God, how is this possible? That in the church, I saw this picture. And now I'm here, there's nothing there. But somehow I trusted it so much. I trusted myself so much that I thought, you know what? I will just go into the field. So I drove around, walked into the field, and sure enough, there it is. You could not see it from where I stood, but it was there. This is it. It's incredible. This is Heather. And I have to add you something. Heather, my wife, who is sitting in the back, that I keep on talking in I, but it's actually we. So we have gone through this all together, but that's a very complicated way of telling a story when you continue to say we. So I'm saying the whole time I, but it's actually the two of us. What you see here, only a very few people have seen it, because the farmer is already cutting the field. And the next day it was totally gone. I think 3 people have been in it. Me, Heather, and one other person. This is what it looked like from above. And when I saw it, I thought, wow, I recognize it. I see immediately what it is. You, of course, as well. 3, 2, me, Chartres. It's the Westeros window of Chartres. Here, this is the diagram of the crop circle. Here you see it projected on Chartres, on the window. When you go inside, it's even becoming more clear. This is the Westeros window in Chartres Cathedral in France. The crop circle beautifully actually is a representation of that window. It's totally crazy how that came into the field. And it's really, really very closely related to it. Anybody ever gone to Chartres, ever been in Chartres? You have been there? You have also seen this then? This big labyrinth. Of course, when you go to Chartres, you have to walk the labyrinth. So if you ever do that, then go on a Friday, because on a Friday the chairs are out the church, so you can walk the labyrinth. All the other days these chairs are there. And so yesterday evening, after I was in this standing stone restaurant, I went for a few drinks, and I went to this place. Liquid acids. Never heard of it. And I sat there on this pillow here the whole evening. And it's only when I stood up I thought, what is this here? Look here. There. Chartres. It's here. It's so close. But it's those things that I listen to. I take this very serious. When I see things like that happening, I think, that is a messenger. I have to take this serious. Why is it that I'm here in Ashland, going to talk about crop circle standing stones and all that other stuff, and there's a standing stone pub, there's another pub with Chartres in it, that has to be that there's no coincidence. So, nearly a year later, 2010, I am invited to do a lecture at a conference in Marlborough, here in the Memorial Hall. That's a great honor, and as it goes with conferences, there's always more than one speaker. So one of the other speakers in August 2010 in Marlborough was Graham Hancock. Now, you know all Graham Hancock was a story about the Great Pyramids and how the Great Pyramids totally line up with Sirius, and I don't know, a long story. He has written all books over it, about it. And I thought, I have never heard this story from Graham himself. Never. And I'm really interested in this because there is also a great pyramid in the landscape. So I thought, let's go to this lecture of Graham Hancock and let me hear him talk about the Great Pyramid, because I will be able to listen between the lines. And I will listen and hear the real message. So there I go to the lecture of Graham Hancock, not one pyramid, nothing. The whole lecture he talked about shamans and shamanism, and how these shamans travel from one world to the other world, and how they use this ugly looking potion for it. And according to people who have tried this potion, it's not only ugly looking, it also tastes really ugly. And it's called ayahuasca. So his whole lecture was about ayahuasca. I thought, that is really amazing. Why did I go to this lecture? And he showed pictures, drawings of what people had seen while they were using ayahuasca. He would show things like that, but also things like this. Really interesting. Here, these people. You cannot even see the distinction between the people and the tree. It looks like there's a oneness there. And this one here, look here, UFOs here, angels with flaming swords there, for people who know all the stories. It's really amazing that these people who did a trip on ayahuasca would come back telling these kinds of stories. That, of course, drew my total attention. I was one and all attention. And the agent that really makes this happen, so the substance in ayahuasca that's really doing the trick, is this, dimethyltryptamine, or, in other words, DMT. DMT is a chemical substance that we actually produce in our head, in our pineal gland. Very, very small amounts, but DMT is produced there. So it's not even strange to our body. And DMT can also pass the blood barrier. The blood barrier is actually the filter that takes care that not all kinds of nasty things come into the brain. This can just pass through and get into your brain. DMT. So he had me totally mesmerized. And when I came back home, I thought, I have to look this up. So I started studying DMT. And when you do that, very quickly you come across this man, Rick Strassman, medical doctor. He worked in those days that I'm talking about at the university in Albuquerque, the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. And Rick Strassman has done a really thorough scientific research into DMT. And in the end, he wrote 2 books about it. DMT, the spirit molecule, and In the Path to Outer Space. And this Rick Strassman, it was really very scientific research, so it was all very, very well taken care of. All the reports were done very carefully. Administration was done very carefully. He did it really according to scientific rules. And this is what his people saw. They saw, and you could expect that, a little bit the same as ayahuasca, because it's also the substance that is in ayahuasca. But something else happened. And Rick Strassman was totally taken away by it. And he had no idea what to do with it. Because he said, this is how he words it in different interviews, the most interesting results were that high doses of DMT seemed to allow the consciousness of our volunteers to enter into a non-corporeal, freestanding, independent realms of existence inhabited by beings who oftentimes were expecting the volunteers. So they go in the DMT trip, and then suddenly there comes this creature. That took you, but welcome. It's great that you're here now. So it's really strange, and they all went through that. So he expected 1 or 2 of those, but this cannot be true. Also surprising were the common themes of what these beings were doing with so many of our volunteers. Manipulating, communicating, showing, helping, questioning. It was definitely a two-way stream. So they were meeting these beings while they were on this trip, and these beings were communicating with his volunteers. While at the same time, typical near-death and mystical states did occur, but they were relatively rare. So what you would expect was that you would get a lot of near-death things. No. And his volunteers told him, look, Rick, I know this sounds really totally crazy, but what we have seen is real. He said, it is totally real. Now, Rick Strassman was a smart man. He had chosen his volunteers from a whole pool of LSD users. He did it on great purpose, because these LSD users would not be in total shock. They would not be easily surprised. So there's of course always a danger when you do this that people go totally berserk. And he thought, when I take people who have a history with LSD, this will be much easier on them. So they will actually handle that pretty correctly. And they all said, Rick, I know, LSD is totally hallucination. This is not LSD. This is as real as it gets. Total crazy. So he kept on really researching this. He went further into it. And the people came back with stories about gnomes, about little trolls, about creatures we know from fairy tales. And said, we have seen them, we've interacted with them. Or elves. Suddenly there were all these elves there. And they all came back with the same kind of stories. Of here little people. Of here the Green Man. So Strassman thought, I cannot believe this. This cannot be true. So he was very thorough in researching it. And in the end, he had to come to the conclusion that it was not an hallucination. Now, can you imagine? There's Dr. Rick Strassman. He has a beautiful career in the University of New Mexico. And now comes the end of his book. And does he have the courage to write down what he really thinks? And he has. In the end of the book, he writes it down. He said, the people need to know this. They need to know this. And he wrote it as follows. He said, look, every day when you watch television, imagine that you only can see one channel, channel normal. So there's all kinds of dials on your television, but they're totally stuck. So you only have one channel, like a radio. So there's a whole radio station, but you cannot switch. It's only this one station that you hear the whole time. He said, that is how reality pops up, shows itself. But DMT provides regular, repeated and reliable access to other channels. So when you take DMT, suddenly the knob releases itself. And you can switch channels. You can switch realities. You can go from one world into the other world. He also wrote, the other planes of existence are always there. In fact, they are right here, transmitting all the time. So while we sit here, it's like a radio station. You have this one station that you tune to, but at the same time, all the other stations are in the air. And now, with DMT, it becomes possible to tune in the other ones. But we cannot perceive them, those other realms of existence, because we are not designed to do so. Our hardwiring keeps us tuned into channel normal. So in the end, actually, Strassman had the courage to write in the book from, look, there are other realities, and actually they are totally accessible. You can totally get into these realities. There's no objection at all. You can do it, and they're really there. So there I am, 2 years after this whole thing with Graham Hancock. I'm back in Marlborough. I'm back at the same conference. It's now July 2012. Oh, that's not that long ago. I'm here invited again in a memorial hall, and I will show you why that is a great honor to do a conference in the memorial hall. Here is the memorial hall. Here is a hill. It's called the Mound. And the Mound is considered, here you see a close-up, is considered to be the grave of Merlin. You can laugh about it. It's Merlin's barrow. It's Merle's barrow. So officially, Marlborough is named after Merle's barrow. So Marlborough is actually then the place where Merlin found his last resting place. Now this is really interesting because this mound is on the grounds of Marlborough College. Marlborough College is where Kate Middleton went to school. Now, for those people who know a little bit about the English royalties, she will be the queen. She went to school here, next to Merlin. So when you do a lecture there, you know from, what a whole family is looking at me. And Merlin is, of course, there looking over my shoulder. So it is really a great honor to be here in the Memorial Hall in Marlborough. It's an incredible landscape where so many stories come together. So there I am, and my lecture is about this book, which unfortunately, I have it only in Dutch. The Diary of a Time Traveler. I have one copy with me so you can have a look, and if you think, whoa, Bert, this has to be in English, just help me. That's that simple, of course. So I had done my lecture, and I was really satisfied, I was really happy, and I was leaving the conference hall, and when I was walking to my car, there was this man running after me. Bert, Bert! And I could hear he was not Dutch, and he was also not English. He was definitely French. Bert, Bert, out! So I stopped, and he came and said, Bert, I want you to have this. This is really important for you. And he put something in my hand. And I didn't even look at this. I said, what is it? And he said, Rudebak. Sorry? Rudebak. I had no idea what he was saying. And he was already walking towards his car. So I asked him, what is it? Rudebak. And then I caught it. Rudebak. So I asked him, Rudebak. Oh, oui. Got in his car. Off he was. Rudebak. What did he give me? He gave me a medallion. It's this medallion. Now, Rudebak is a street in Paris. And in the early 1800s, and I think it's still there was a nunnery. And in 1830, one of the nuns saw an apparition. So a woman appeared out of nothingness and telling the nun, you have to make these medallions and distribute them over the world. So this medallion was given to this Frenchman to me. But wow. It really intrigued me, so I started studying apparitions. I started studying, for instance, this, Bernadette in Lourdes. Or this one, 3 witnesses. Where's this? Fatima. And this one, 6 witnesses. And not only a woman, also 2 men and an object. Anybody? It's in Knock in Ireland. And, of course, this one. Our Lady of Guadalupe. It happened in Tepeyac, and this is a really, really interesting situation. Because Juan Diego, who actually saw the apparition, not only him, his uncle saw it later as well, but who saw the apparition, talked actually to the apparition. The apparition told him, Juan, I want you to know who I am. I am the Mother of God. And Juan, who was a Hanuato Indian, just actually Christianized by the Spanish 2 years earlier, that's why he has a Spanish name, Juan Diego, he was totally actually shocked, because in his way of seeing the world, God was the highest entity. So he said, to make it really clear, I am the mother of that entity that created the earth, the moon, the heavens, the stars, the galaxies, the whole universe. I am his mother. And Juan Diego did not know what to do with that. But there happened something really strange. Of course, this was in the Nakamadi library, already mentioned by the scroll writers. Something strange happened. She left physical evidence. This one of the very few apparitions that the physical evidence was left behind by the apparition. She left her own image in the tilma, in the cape of Juan Diego. And you can still go to Mexico City and see that. I've been there. I've been in this cathedral. There it is. It's still there. She left a physical thing. And suddenly when I saw this, I thought, I recognized it immediately. Because that is identical to that. Look, she's standing on a crescent moon here, in front of a flaming sun. On her head, a crown of 12 stars. It's actually in the book of Revelations. It's mentioned in the book of Revelations. And I suddenly realized, can it be that the Mother of God talked to me? So when I was in that church and I heard this voice, go outside, go to this crowning landscape and open your eyes. Was that the goddess talking to me? I actually think that was what was going on there. That's also the reason why I put it on the book. Who now thinks, wow, gee, Bert, I really want that book. It's for sale there. So that's good luck. And we have many copies, so that's good. Sophia's Egg, I wrote that whole novel and I put her on the cover because the whole book is about the Mother of God, about Sophia, about how we find our way back to actually the goddess. But let's go back to the DMT research from Strassman. Because strangely enough, all his volunteers were also talking about figurines in the sky. Like they were seeing women, men, objects in the sky. Can it be that the apparitions are actually very closely related to DMT? Can it be that the witnesses of this apparition had actually a kind of DMT dump? So they got a really high concentration suddenly of DMT, perhaps even instigated by the apparition itself, but that you could look through? It could totally be true. And look here again. She is standing in front of what looks like a porthole. It looks like she's standing in front of something that she just came through. Now we know this. We have seen this many times. It has been expressed in many paintings. Every time when you see a painting of Jesus who has made the ascension, it's shown that he's walking through a doorway. Like he can go to the other world and come back and show us, look, it's that simple. Open your eyes and you will see. But it's very simple. I will do it once more time. Here, I am again. I'm just stepping through the door, and the only thing you have to do what I do. Just step through the doorway. It's really amazing. Now you can say, yeah, but Bert, that's artist impression. That's not real what you see there. Think about it. Many of these artists were working out of their really deep intuition. Can it be that they actually were tapping what was exactly going on? And it's not only Jesus that came through the doorway. It's also Maria. The Assumption of Maria, you see it so many times. It goes back and forth through the doorways. Is this impossible? Is this total craziness what I say there? Not totally. Because in the Gnostic Gospels are these scrolls that came from Nag Hammadi, there's a really interesting text to be found. It's researched by Elaine Pagels. I think she's here from the States. She did this 20 years ago. And she compared Gnosticism, so what actually the Knights Templar were thinking, the inner knowing, with traditional Christianity. It's a really beautiful book. I can really recommend that. And she shows a few places in, for instance, the Acts of John, where something really strange happens. James and John have been on sea, long time fishing, and they come back, and James says, John, what would this child have that's up in the seashore and called us? So James is seeing a little child. And then John, I said, which child? And he, James, answered me, the one who's beckoning to us. And I said, that's because of the long watch we have kept at sea. You're not seeing straight, brother James. Do you not see that man standing there, who's handsome, fair, and cheerful looking? But he said to me, I do not see that man. So there they are. They say two different realities. It skews. One sees a child, the other one sees a grown-up. It looks like they look into different worlds. They go ashore to further investigate. He appeared, as John talking, he appeared to me again as a rather bald-headed, but with a thick flowing beard. But to James as a young man, whose beard was just beginning. I tried to see him as he was. But he sometimes appeared to me as a small man with no good looks, and then again as one reaching up to heaven. So it was skewing, even for John, it was continuously skewing from one reality to another reality. And then John goes even on and says, I will tell you another glory, brethren. Sometimes when I meant to touch him, and him is Jesus, I encountered the material, solid body. But at other times, again, when I felt him, his substance was immaterial and incorporeal, as if it did not exist at all. So sometimes he could really touch him, and other times he was not there. He was like a ghost. So it's even in the scriptures, there's stories about a really strange reality, an other world, other worlds even perhaps. Does this mean that now we have to eat really tons of DMT? Or perhaps fight our way to this incredible, disgusting brew? No, no. For that we have to go to this book. The Teachings of Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda. Now, the last edition of this book, Carlos Castaneda made sure that the introduction to the book was rewritten, because people were not getting it. They were missing the point. So if you buy this book, try to find the last edition before Carlos Castaneda died, and you will find his explanation of what was called by Don Juan the assemblage point. Now, Don Juan was somebody who was traveling the worlds as well, and he was using huge amounts of ayahuasca for that. But he also traveled the worlds without ayahuasca. And for that, he used his assemblage point. Now, the idea behind the assemblage point is that reality as we see it is not the reality as we see it. It works a little bit as follows. Reality comes towards this object, the kind of grapefruit. It's assembled there, and we communicate with that grapefruit. That's how the Yaqui Indians see it. And if you now move that point, the grapefruit, to another position, another reality will be assembled, and you will communicate with another world. So Don Juan said, I can travel between the worlds by just moving my assemblage point. It's that simple. It's not that simple, but he could do it. When you do that, if you do that, your pineal gland gets an incredible kick and is forced to produce the DMT. And when I noticed that, I thought, oh, wow, of course, that's what's going on. That is what's going on in these power spots. When we are there, at these tones, our pineal gland starts to produce little amounts more of DMT, and we get the experience that we talk to the divine. We feel that the veil is really thin between the worlds, and that we actually can communicate now with the other side. And likely, that is totally true. And crop circles do the identical thing. That is why so many people get attracted to it. They just want to be in it, and they have then a divine experience. They have an experience with the goddess. And that's very likely because their pineal gland is producing a little bit more DMT than you normally have in your body. And that is what attracts people through crop circles. And that's also why we organize these trips, to bring you to these spots where the veil is thin. Not because the veil is thin, no, it's because you will have it so easy to look through that veil. The veil is as thick as anywhere else. It's only that you can better communicate with it. And I had just all written it down and I thought, okay, that's all more nice. But, Bert, this cannot be the total truth. It cannot be that it is that simple. And it turned out that there was one more additional factor. I knew it, and I did not see it until I was here. And this was in August last year. And where is this? This is Oxford, an incredible city, Oxford. Oxford University, the oldest English-speaking university of the world. Here, Christ Church. How many people know that Lewis Carroll worked at Christ Church in Oxford and wrote there Alice in Wonderland? That was written in Oxford. And here, what you see there is the Great Hall. And it looks like this. And you recognize it? Yeah, it's used in Harry Potter. All these things. When you go further down the road, there's this pub, the Eagle and Child. So if you ever come to Oxford, you want to go to this pub, the Eagle and Child. Because in the old days, this was the meeting place of the Inklings. The Inklings. And the Inklings were people like Tolkien and Lewis. They were coming together there. Lewis is the author of the Chronicles of Narnia. Now do realize you're not making these stories up easily. So there is Alice in Wonderland, written in Oxford. There is the Chronicles of Narnia, written in Oxford. And there, Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings, written in Oxford. And they all went to Wiltshire for inspiration. So even though they wrote it in Oxford, they went to Wiltshire because they knew, if I sit under my tree, Tolkien had a special tree, then not only will I experience the other world, I will also hear the stories of the locals. And I'm just going to write that down. We'll see, perhaps it will lead to a book. It did actually in the end. The Lord of the Rings. So there I am. You have to realize this is the exact spot where Tolkien was sitting when he was writing. So I sat there as well. So sitting from, okay, Tolkien, give it to me. So sitting there, and yes, it came to me. I'm writing here in my diary, and I suddenly realized the missing factor is totally in my novel. I had already totally written about it. How is this possible? How is it that I actually had missed that in my own book? My private book I wrote. And I had been involved in it for already 10, 15 years. This is Simeon Hine, Dr. Simeon Hine. And he is from Boulder, Colorado. I know him since 15 years, and I did a little workshop with him in August. And even during the workshop, I was not copying on. I had to go to Oxford to see it. The workshop was about remote viewing. And it was that moment that I thought, of course, that is the missing factor. Remote viewing is a technique that allows you to see things that you normally cannot see. For example, because it's far away, much further than your eye can reach, or because they're hidden. So it's a picture in a sealed envelope. Everybody knows it about remote viewing. The idea behind remote viewing is that even though you cannot see an object, information about it is still available. Say, call it the Akasha records. Call it the morphogenetic fields. So, but even that if you cannot see it, it's still actually, like the radio stations, all there. You only have to tune in the right radio station. And everybody knows remote viewing for that reason. But I suddenly realized that is what happened there. When I drove there and I saw that crop circle, which I could not see, it turned out later on, I actually was remote viewing spontaneously. I saw something that was impossible to see. And here, this man, when I walked by him, I saw the photos of the crop circles. They were still in the bag. But I saw them. I could see these crop circle photos sitting there. And here, of course, the same thing. It's continuously remote viewing. Remote viewing that brings it all together. Is it only that you see around the corner? No, it goes further. And this makes it really interesting. Yes, here we have John McMonigle, American. He used to be in the American Army. The Army was incredibly interested in remote viewing, because can you imagine that you can look into the bunker of let's say, Moscow without being there, and you can just see where you have to pull the plugs in that and what you have to destroy? That's, of course, brilliant. You don't have to even go there. You just sit on your desk and you see it. So they got really intrigued and really involved in remote viewing. John McMonigle was one of their top viewers, but John had to learn it as well. So there came a day that he did his first session. And in those days, they did it as follows. Say, okay, Joe, sit at this table here. Here's a piece of paper, and just sit. Pen, so you can make a drawing. And here we have the so-called outgoer. He will go somewhere in town to a specific building, and it's now up to you to see which building he is at. So we will wait 20 minutes until he's there, and then you start to concentrate. Say, okay, yeah, let me see. Can I see what he sees? Can I look through his eyes? So John McMonigle, there he was, drawing. And what he was drawing was an office building. Incredible accurate. It was really dead on. But there was one element in his drawing that was not there in reality. He drew a red bicycle. So in front of the building, he saw a red bicycle. That was totally not there. In those days, as a kind of feedback, they would, after the session, take the remote viewer and bring it to the spot as well, so he can see then actually what he had to see it for himself, get some feedback. So they go there with him, they are standing there, and they're totally amazed because the building and his drawing are so incredibly accurate. And while they stand there, a man comes along on a red bicycle and parks it in front of the building and goes inside the building, exactly as John McMonigle had seen it. So it goes a little bit further than just looking around the corner. It looks like time is also a factor that's not really relevant anymore. Had ik ook in het begin. If you now take these crop circles and you take the standing stones, you put them together, you go to that spot, and there you engage yourself in remote viewing, I guarantee you that it becomes really easy to tap in that other world, into a world that was totally unknown to you so far, in a world like this, what you will see here. To be honest, I had planned to wrap it up here and to release you. But then a voice told me, no, Bert, you have to tell them one more story. And the book, I have to tell you how that came about, how this book came about. It's Sophia's Eye in Dutch. I wrote it as a script. I thought, I can see this film, I can see this movie, I can see this totally all happening. This is an incredible movie, because no movie has ever been made in this landscape, with crop circles as a leading theme. Only one, Science, really bad movie actually. I'm not allowed to say it, but I do, bad movie. Science, and I thought, I will write this and will make this movie. I got even help from the Dutch Film Foundation. They helped me write the script, and then they moved from these subjects to children movies. So there was my script, and I decided to rewrite it into a book, a novel. And it's this novel. And then I decided to rewrite it partly again, and it got translated, and it became this book. But in that book is that script still there. That script, that whole story, that whole intriguing story of a young man who finds the way, even though he's not willingly, he's not aware of it, but he finds the way to the goddess. And realize while he's doing that the church is not a happy bunny in that whole story. And the army also not. And the Secret Service also not. So it's a really intriguing story that's totally based on truth, on factual events. And the only thing that needs to be done now is it has momentum, but now it really has to start moving. And that is why we invited you. Because in the end, we looked at people and said, who will we get involved? Who are we inviting that are people who have their eyes open, who can see through, who can see the bigger picture, and who are willing to support this idea. And that's the reason why we thought, these people here, I don't know you, but other people do know you very well, that you are actually, in a way, the ones we thought, those people we need to have in our team, in our group. We need to have these people. And it's not just to make a movie with a message. This is a movie with an incredible potentiality. This is a blockbuster. This is one that will go down history. So I'm not only looking for people who say, hey Bert, I'll give you a pat on the shoulder. Will that help you? Yeah, it will help. But I'm looking also for people who say, you know what, I can see how far-reaching this is. I'm willing to invest in it. I'm willing to put money in it. And it is not that you have to donate the money. You invest in that. You make it actually possible, and you will see the return on investment is huge and enormous. And I came the whole way from Holland because I had the feeling, when I talked with Denise about this, I said, yeah, I have the feeling that this is the right place. I've been so many times approached by people say, Bert, we have to make that film, we have to make a movie. I said, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. This is the first time it feels right and it falls all into place. So, to make this happen, we depend on you. Together, we can do that. Thank you for being here, and there's a lot of wine and goodies after this now, and Denise will tell about that. She's the producer of this project. She's going to make it all happen together with our director who sits there. And so please,
absolutely.
And a true story.
And a true story, yes. in a storytelling way. So, again, we want to thank Bert for coming all the way to Ashland from Holland. And in the back, there are books for sale. Sophia's Egg. Please grab yourself a book. And again, this is the beginning of the process of the film being developed. And we hope all of you, through connections of one sort or another, will be able to join in the family of Sophia's Egg. We also have an email sign-up out there, and it's under Reimagine Productions. Please put your name and address, email, and phone number, and we'll be able to keep you updated on the progress of the film as we go through. And once again, welcome to Sophia's Egg.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
RVML Resource Center is a volunteer-operated federal 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. RVML is dedicated to providing easy access to a comprehensive collection of information on a variety of metaphysical, spiritual, and personal development subjects. RVML accepts and appreciates all donations. Material and monetary contributions are fully tax deductible. This recording is not copyrighted and permission is granted to broadcast, exhibit, or duplicate all or part of this program for non-commercial educational purposes. This live presentation was organized and presented by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. For more information, please visit rvml.org.